Hey guys, I am so happy to be here with you tonight. I am one tired mama, I gotta tell you, but I am so happy that I am here talking to you about why kids don't eat because it is one of the things that I think is misunderstood when it comes to picky eating. And it's one of the things that I'm the most passionate about talking about because I'm a really huge believer in when we understand what is going on, it changes everything. And I have totally, I have totally experienced this myself as a parent in the last couple months, dealing with totally different parenting challenges that do not fall into my area of expertise. And as I was wondering what the heck was going on um, as my child was struggling with different challenges, I could see how much it helped once I understood what was going on. So I don't want to waste any more time. You guys are more than welcome to ask questions as we go out. If I can, I'll get to them while I'm talking, but if not, I will definitely check at the end. And I want to welcome anybody that's new here. I know there's a lot of new fans to Your Kids Table, and I'm so happy that you guys are here. Many of you because you have already signed up for the live workshop next week, all on picky eating. I'll tell you more about that at the end. But for right now, let's get in. So, truth be told, there are a lot of reasons why kids don't eat or are picky eaters, or really when we're talking about why kids aren't eating, we're usually in the category of extreme picky eating. So, not always, and sometimes kids move in and out of these phases. But although there are many, many, many different reasons that children don't eat, I tend to see that they fall into just 5 different categories. So the very first one is often one that is the most overlooked, and that is medical. I know you guys are probably already like rolling your eyes and you think that that sounds really boring, really obvious, but hear me out on this, okay? Because there are a couple of things that, and the reason this is the first one is I want you to stop and think and let yourself continue to think if there's any chance that there could be anything medical going on, namely reflux or constipation. Those are 2 really big ones that are more chronic problems that can really affect a child's eating. Now, I will say reflux can be very hidden, and some children will not even complain of the symptoms. So if I get through this whole list and you can't pinpoint anything else, I definitely want you to come back here and question reflux or maybe some other possible medical issue that might be going on. There are many, many other minor and more rare medical issues that can be causing a child to not eat that they have zero ability to describe. I mean, think about a 2-year-old. If they have always felt their stomach burning, they don't know anything else. They're not going to tell you that. And that goes true even for an 8-year-old. They may not have the body awareness to describe that to you. It totally depends on your child. So don't take it for granted that just because there aren't major red flags for things like reflux, that there isn't something going on medically. Okay? Constipation, I'm going to talk about real quick. I know so many of you guys are struggling with constipation. It's definitely something we have had our struggles with here, although not as a result of picky eating. But the constipation thing is kind of a which came first kind of scenario, because oftentimes picky eating causes constipation, and then once a child is constipated, it makes it really hard for them to have an appetite and want to go to the bathroom. And I want you to also, while I'm talking about 2 major ones, constipation and reflux, there are also some more minor medical issues also that we really start to take for granted. When toddlers and babies are teething, that can last for a long time for some kiddos and can really put a dent in how and what they're eating. And also when our kiddos are starting to feel sick, or maybe sick but not have really obvious symptoms. So more short-term things, you definitely want to be looking in that area. As far as other medical issues, Kim, I saw you just asked a question. This is a great place to answer it, so I'm going to answer real quick. I will say that these are much rarer, but just to answer your question, sometimes kids have problems with something called stomach emptying. So the food doesn't exit their stomach as quickly as it should, so they're feeling full much longer. Sometimes children have some minor abnormalities in their throat that make eating difficult, swallowing difficult or uncomfortable. Things like that can be going on. And that's definitely why it's important to talk to your pediatrician if you're suspecting, or go straight to a pediatric GI doctor. A lot of times you can do that. You can just go straight to the pediatric GI doctor. Before we do that though, hear me out on the other reasons, because while something else might be going on, I also want to stress to you guys that it's very common for multiple reasons to be affecting why a child isn't eating. And the longer it's been going on, the more likely that there are multiple reasons. So it's kind of like pulling back these different layers and seeing what really is the main picture. And then Kim, I'm going to answer your question real quick here before we leave medical. You ask, how are these diagnosed? So usually that's with an endoscopy. I know, not super awesome, but I have worked with so many kids. Most doctors are pretty cautious before they just send straight to an endoscopy. Some doctors will trial run medications first, and if you see a response, then obviously that's an indication that there's, it's fixing a problem. An endoscopy is the only way to know 100%. I have had actually quite a few children that I have worked with end up going through endoscopies and find something going on. And although nobody wants to do that, it ended up being a really huge blessing. So I'm not saying that that's right for anybody's particular situation. Definitely a thing you need to talk to your doctor about. I just think it's something to be open to. So number 2, my favorite, you guys guess? Sensory. Sensory processing, right? Oh, this is probably the most common missing link, right? Now, I know many of you that are here liking your kids' table know a lot about sensory processing now. Some of you might really be new to that. So if I'm speaking and using terms that you're not familiar with, don't hesitate to type in the comments or questions because I definitely want to clarify that for you. But there's a huge component to how we choose what we eat based on the way things smell, the way things look, the way things taste, right? So right off the bat, all of us are choosing which foods we want to eat because of the sensory properties that foods have. But some children have sensory needs that are making it really like super difficult. Like it's like there's a wall there for them to get over to really be able to try a new texture, to really be able to feel comfortable, because in their brain, this is truly happening in their brain. It feels different to them, and it can actually be really aversive to them. So having something like scrambled eggs in front of a child that hates scrambled eggs, gags at the sight of scrambled eggs, might even throw up at the sight of scrambled eggs, or whatever that said food or foods are, is a really strong indication that there's some sensory processing difficulties going on. I want to choose my words wisely there, because it's not necessarily something bad that they're, and although issues is a word that we commonly use, it's not bad. It's the way that your child is just processing that information in their brain. The good news is there's a lot that can be done to improve sensory processing in children because their brains are growing and changing and we can create new pathways. That's the awesome part about sensory processing. So it's really important to acknowledge, though, that sensory could be a component. Now, while I say it's often a missing link that people sometimes miss, it's not 100% of the time. So while I say that, I don't want you becoming overly cautious, or I don't want you over analyzing and making it sensory when it might not be. Although we all choose the foods based on those sensory components, it's not always because of sensory needs or sensory aversions that we are or not eating certain foods. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? I think so. So it's really important to consider sensory as an option. And you can probably look all over your kids' table. There's just tons and tons, probably hundreds of comments from people saying, "Oh my gosh, like this makes so much sense. I've never heard of sensory before." So definitely a huge component and something that you want to consider. Okay, so let's move on to reason number 3. Reason number 3, okay, now I'm going to get a little like therapist on you guys, I'm sorry, but it's oral motor skills. I know, that's like not really a parent-friendly term, I'm sorry, but basically it means how your child is chewing and managing their food. So sounds like something that we often kind of take for granted. And I will say that I have met very, very few parents who actually notice, because you're not thinking about it. If your kid's putting the food in your mouth, you're not really paying attention to how they're chewing. But this is definitely a reason that some children have difficulty with eating foods. Especially, you will see these warning signs very early on. Often when you're trying to get, like if you can think back, so like if you're watching this right now and you have a 5-year-old or even a 10-year-old or a 4-year-old, if you can think back and they had difficulty moving onto like finger foods and table foods when they were babies, so like when you started giving them like, the little dry cereal or puffs, and they were putting it in their mouth and they'd end up gagging and throwing up, not right away, but they would try to chew it and it would just be a mess. Obviously, some gagging is normal, but if that problem escalated right there and they had a really hard time and just kind of wanted to happily eat those pureed foods, that's a really good indication that there was at least at some point some difficulty moving the food around. So chewing and swallowing is an extremely complicated process that we totally take for granted because it's so easy for us now, and for so many it's our instinct. But some children, either because their muscles aren't strong enough, because they haven't figured out how to coordinate getting the food in their mouth, moving it to their teeth, moving it back, putting it in a ball, swallowing it down. There's a lot of little steps in there. If any of that isn't coordinated or the strength isn't there, then they will start to gag often when they are trying to swallow, often when they are trying to chew and they lose track of it. Those are really big indications that there's an oral motor skill going on. Now, as kids go on, like if they never got any help, then they might at some point figure out how to kind of get past that. But eating has been really unpleasant now for them for a long time, right? So this kind of picky eating problem just totally persists, and it just keeps going and it kind of snowballs. So even though some of those original issues might be resolved at some point down the line, all of those negative experiences and the fact that they didn't have that good foundation can really still cause problems down the line. Now, if you do still have a little guy or girl, and they are 1 or 2 years old, and you're even, any age really, and you haven't moved past them being able to eat, like physically chew a variety of foods, then this is a really strong indicator that this is what is going on for sure. Okay, let's move on to reason number 4. Okay, so 4 is routine based, okay? And let me tell you right now before I say another word that I am not pointing any fingers, and that I am not calling anybody out on not setting up a good routine for their kid, because believe me, I have seen everything. I have seen really extreme situations, and parents understandably doing all sorts of desperate things to get their child to eat. So, what I'm talking about here is actually the lack of routine first. So, one of the things that is so super important is that our kids are on a structure and a routine around meals. So, that's everything from like having meals scheduled, that's everything from, sorry guys, that's my low batteries popping up. That's everything from having meals scheduled, that's everything to sitting and eating at a table, um, serving your child a food and not letting them pick. All of that kind of stuff, like all of those general rules, I use that term loosely, around meals all fall into routine. When kids don't have that to begin with, which a lot happens a lot, especially with firstborns. Parents don't know because they don't send you home with the manual that tells you what to do for this stuff. So parents are doing the best they can, and they sometimes don't do these things. And if your kid has had one of those other issues and eating isn't going so great to begin with, because we will often see, I didn't mention this earlier, but with sensory problems, or challenges, we will often see that they may not even want purees because they can't stand the taste of that in their mouth. Or they might like purees but not like the texture of like the table foods. Again, the key there is that you're looking for the gag right away, because it's the texture, they just cannot handle it. But the routine, so if you're having any of those issues, you may already like forget routine. You're just trying to get your kid to eat something because you can't figure out what the heck they're doing. But sometimes kids that have had a lack of routine and don't even have any of these other underlying issues going on can really snowball into picky eating because they just haven't had those healthy boundaries around meals. This is probably one of the easiest picky eating reasons to overcome. It just takes some time. It just takes some time, and it's really the hardest on us to change because all those mealtime dynamics are really wrapped up into the individual family culture we have set up in our own homes, right? And that kind of gets personal. So those things can get a little challenging to change. I also want to mention, though, that sometimes parents start off with a really good or decent routine, but then something happens between 1 and 2, and everything has been going great. I hear this from parents all the time. My kid was the best eater. They ate everything. They ate every kind of baby food. Then they ate avocado and beans and like chicken breast, that was just falling off the bone. They were the healthiest eater. They never had anything. And then all of a sudden, around 15 months, or maybe it was 18 months, or maybe it was 20 months, or even 2 years old, all of a sudden they stopped eating. So picky eating is a normal phase, and it usually starts between 1 and 2 years old. I have seen it like clockwork with my other 2 children that didn't have more significant feeding issues. My second son had very significant sensory issues going on instantly right out of the gate, and that was really obvious. But I saw my other 2 children who were really good eaters kind of slide into this picky eating phase. Still overall doing pretty good, but it gets really disheartening when you see your kid that was eating the steamed chicken breast now not eat it, or they're throwing the broccoli all over the floor that they used to devour. And we start to freak out, and routine goes right out the window, and you start giving your toddler, because they're only 1 or 2 years old, they're so little, right? You need to feed them. You start giving them whatever they want. You start feeding them wherever they want just to get them to eat. And you think it's a temporary fix, but it snowballs, and picky eating can come really severe out of that. So that's another way that routine can really turn into a serious kind of extreme picky eating situation. Okay, so I want to highlight that those are the four main areas. I'm going to say them again. So medical, sensory, oral motor skills, or just think of that as like coordination and chewing, and routine. Okay, so four different areas and lots of different things kind of falling under there. And there's one other, actually, I forgot to mention one other thing that falls under medical, I would say. And that's when your child has had a really significant illness, procedure, or incident in and around their throat or with eating. Okay, so again, sometimes we haven't drawn all of those connections. But after spending time talking to parents, this is like something that comes out a lot. It was so strange. We went on this trip and our child got like violently ill for like 3 days. And after that, they weren't eating. Now that you think about it, oh my gosh, it happened right after that. And that was when it all started. If they have had a really horrific experience, and actually I shouldn't say really horrific to them, it really can set up an aversion for them to not want to eat new foods. So that I would place under the medical kind of arena. But that's another way that children could end up choosing not to eat, and it snowballs through that. So when I say all of that, I'm going to say one last reason, and I say it very cautiously, and it is behavior. Okay, I say this one last because it is like the least, I shouldn't say it's the least component, but it is rarely the only reason why a child is not eating. Okay, it kind of makes me a little nuts. There's a lot of stuff online that you will read that suggests, maybe from people that aren't feeding therapists, that your kids need to be told what to do and they are trying to test boundaries with you. And while there's some truth to that, there is some truth to that. Like 98% of the time, like seriously, the vast majority of the time, your child is not just not eating because of that. Okay. Now, I will say that extreme picky eaters often have a very strong-willed personality. So that plays a factor in the whole picture, and why and how they're choosing to eat certain foods certainly can have behavioral components to them. The longer it goes on, the more that can become the case. But truly, even a 1-year-old learns very quickly that they get a really strong reaction out of people around them, namely mom and dad, when they're not eating. Children have very little power in their life, right? And there are very few things that they can control. And guess what 2 of the big areas are that they can control? Eating and sleeping. And those are 2 of the areas that they give parents the hardest time about. So they do know that they have power there, but it's not the reason that your child is the main reason that they are a picky eater. Okay, so really important for that to keep in mind. And Jolene, you are so sweet. I see your lovely comment there. Thank you so much for the shout out. Jolene I have worked with Jolene before, and her son have done amazing stuff. And she also happens to be a sleep consultant, speaking of sleep. So let me tell you guys. So we just went through these 5 reasons, right? I'm hoping that you have some insights into what might be going on with your child. Are the wheels turning? Are you starting to see that there might be something there, or did you have some new realization? I'm really hoping so. But I know that the next question is, what the heck do you do about it, right? There's all of this different stuff that can be going on. It's so important, no matter what out of any of these 5 issues is going on, any combination of them, it all starts in the same place. I want uh, I want to be able to give that all to you, um, in completion, and I'm doing that next week again live, in my picky eating workshop. So I'm going to be teaching you the 3 keys to turn around picky eating. And I have gotten amazing emails after these workshops. I did some live in the fall, and this is the first time I'm doing them again, and I don't know when I'm going to be doing them again. So they are next week on Tuesday night and on Wednesday afternoon Eastern time. And you can sign up for that at yourkidstable.com/free. Super simple, right? yourkidstable.com/free. Listen, when you get there, if one of the times don't work for you, sign up anyways, because you never know what's going to happen. I have people emailing me all the time at the last second. My car broke down. I didn't make it into work. Can I still get in? Just get your name on the list. And if you've never attended a live webinar/workshop, it's awesome. It is so much fun for me. I love getting on. There have been really amazing groups of people there, that are all kind of going through the same thing. So the discussion board is incredible. Um, you will take away so much from this, and I will be able to really get into how to change this around, in a much bigger way. So again, I want you guys to head to yourkidstable.com/free. If you haven't already been in the workshop, or if you have and you want to listen in again, definitely sign up. All right, guys, I think I have answered, I think I was trying to answer most of the questions. I don't know. Oh, good. It's going to let me scroll. Thank you, Angelica. Another really sweet comment. Oh, guys, it's jumping on me. Let's see. Trying. It just keeps jumping on me. Karen, you say my daughter's 8, and I'm sorry, Karen. Guys, deal with me for a second here. I really want to answer your question. I'm thinking that it's just not, she's terrified to try new foods, definitely a sensory thing. She feels and tastes things differently. You got it. You hit the nail right on the head there. Good. I had seen that come up, and I couldn't read it at the time before it scrolled away. So you are absolutely right. If you are watching this video later, leave a comment. I will definitely get back to you. If you have any questions about the workshop, you can leave a comment right here too. I will get back to you. And for those of you that are already signed up and joining next week, I can't wait. We're going to have so much fun. There's so much information. I know how valuable your time is. And if you like this is like way bigger. Lots of great slides, and there's a free worksheet, and all kinds of stuff for you to like follow along and make sure you're taking all kinds of good notes and everything like that. So, all right, guys, have a wonderful night. Thanks so much for joining me. It was great to be with you.